Skull and Bones was marketed as a quadruple A game, and even though the Ubisoft CEO had said it was going to be an amazing experience, it has failed to capture the attention of players, and the few individuals who have given it a chance have not liked it and have rated it very poorly. But now Skull and Bones has reportedly failed to crack the 1 million player milestone, even with an 8-hour free trial. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. Now, I have already had to talk about Skull and Bones. This is a game that I personally decided to skip on because I was not impressed with what I saw. When a game is in development for over a decade, and the CEO of the company, in this case Ubisoft, is coming out and saying that this is a quadruple A game and we should be grateful it is only $70, my expectations were through the roof, and I just knew that this was going to end up letting us all down simply because the betas for this game were not extremely positive, and there was only so much time between the betas and full release where they could tweak things, and, they would basically have to scrap the entire game in order to make it decent. But now we're finding out that Skull and Bones is failing to crack even the 1 million player milestone. It says Skull and Bones has kind of proven to be the disaster that many thought it would be, having launched to some pretty dismal reviews and an even worse user score on Metacritic. None of this is good for the game's launch, obviously, particularly one as heavily criticized as this one in the run-up to launch, and it seems Ubisoft may be feeling the consequences as it is struggling to build up a substantial player count. I cannot say that I am all that surprised. When you hype up a game for years, people are bound to be disappointed. Look at Cyberpunk, okay? Launch Cyberpunk was a disaster. It was a disaster because the game was buggy, it was glitchy, it was broken, and even though it was very pretty graphically when the graphics were able to be turned up, and you weren't having to run it on potato mode just to get through the game, it just ended up being quite a letdown. There were really good systems at its core, just very poorly executed, and then they put out Phantom Liberty, they put out the, big patch alongside that, and the game was fantastic, but that took years. It took years to get to that point, and I just don't really see that happening with Skull and Bones because, first of all, I don't see them putting in the time and the money and the effort because they've already put in so much of that already, but also, I just don't think that the core of the game, like the gameplay mechanics, the visuals, these things are good. They're not very good at all, which is just unfortunate, especially when so many people were hoping this was going to be decent. It says, according to a new report from Insider Gaming, Skull and Bones has failed to crack the 1 million player milestone, with the game's player count currently sitting at around 850,000. That's obviously not a number to sniff at, but it looks far less impressive when you consider this is including the players that have been trying out the game via its 8-hour free trial, and is presumably the game's player count across all platforms. That is not a good number. There's no way that they can spin this to say that, well, we were expecting these numbers. There is no possible way. There are plenty of games that in their first launch weekend, they hit 1 million players. Never mind if they had 8-hour free trials. An 8-hour free trial is insane. Usually a free trial is like a half hour to an hour. 8 hours just does not scream confident to me. And clearly a lot of other people, seeing as they have not even given the game a chance, even with this free trial. But this was marketed by the Ubisoft CEO as a quadruple A game just a few weeks ago. So it's interesting to see now how many people are not impressed, simply because I think he was expecting that to give players a certain level of confidence in the purchase and say to themselves, you know what, they're really excited for this launch, they have a lot of faith in it. Obviously the budget is over $200 million, so I'm gonna give it a go. And that plan clearly did not work out for them, and just judging by the Metacritic scores, even the people that have given it a chance have not been extremely happy happy with it. As you can see, it is sitting at a 61 critic, and I don't particularly trust critic reviews. It is a score that definitely is not good and does kind of coincide with the negative user scores, but the user scores are far worse. As you can see, it's currently sitting at a 3.6, and it has been going down over the past few days. I mean, there are just not a lot of people who have really been enjoying this game. A lot of people who have said, you know, I wanted to give it a chance, purchased it full price, obviously, and it's just a nightmare. People are giving it 1s and 2s, saying, what an uninspired, underwhelming turd. All they had to do was update Black Flag. That has been the #1 comparison that I've seen, is people saying that this is a worse Black Flag. And I've watched a lot of Skull and Bones gameplay so far, and I definitely do think that if I wanted to play a title like this, I would be going back to Black Flag, because it had a lot more mechanics, it had the graphics, it had the stylistic environment, and it just has everything that this game basically lacks. Oh right, the moron CEO says it's a quadruple A game, which just proves how clueless he is. Does he play games? Of course he doesn't. He is a businessman. He wants to make money, and I cannot fault a company or a CEO of a company for wanting to make money, because at the end of the day, that's what all of these companies want. But in order to make the money, we as consumers deserve a fully fleshed out product that is not either missing core elements, or core elements are half-assed. You would think in a game about ships and about pirates, you would have good swimming mechanics, and, you know, the swimming would be really impressive, and the game doesn't have that. I mean, you can walk up to, you know, your character model's head in the water and he's still not swimming. Like, it's just such a disappointing experience. Aside from the graphics, there's nothing really good about this game. I do have to say that visually it does look pretty impressive, but at the same time, just because a game is pretty does not make it good, and this clearly proves that. It fails on every possible level of gameplay, and the live service mode of the game drags it down massively with huge grinding mechanics on every step. This is another major issue, is the fact that it is a live service title. This is just not a good direction for them to go in. Okay, we've seen so many live service games release over the past few years, and most of them fail, most notably and most recently, Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. We are just hearing that, you know, Warner Brothers is saying that it has fallen short of their expectations, which is hilarious because we already knew that. It's just good to get that confirmation that we didn't like this product because it was simply a bad product and people were not buying in to their bullshit, and it doesn't seem like people are buying into the Skull and Bones bullshit either. It will be interesting to see over the next few weeks how this ends up going. If maybe people do end up giving it a chance and the player numbers do end up, you know, skyrocketing or even slowly climbing. I highly doubt it at this point, since the game has already been out for 2 weeks and it seems like people just are not buying into it. Only time will tell, but for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.